This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition of the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast, your one-stop shop for college football and college basketball here at MVP. Brandon, we are continuing through our college football previews, getting ready for the season. We are 2 weeks away. That means 2 previews away. I believe we're 2 weeks away. I'm going to double check. We're actually 3 weeks away, technically. We've got that very last week, which will be our predictions and our picks to start the week. That'll be the 27th, so technically 2 weeks from making our picks, but 3 weeks from the actual season beginning. We are now to our last division, or our last conference, I should say. The Pac-12 is where we are going to end things. We're going to do the South today, this week. We'll do the North next week. Then it's our predictions, and then the start of the season, and everything is just gravy from there. Before we get into everything, though, a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. Number one, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast, your one-stop shop to help support the channel. Really, it's not a one-stop shop. It could be, though, because you are rewarded. $10 gets you on the show each and every month you're at it, like Matt, like Pat, who have been on the Primetime Podcast before. Also, make sure to check out our shop, which is down below in the description. You can make sure to get yourself an MVP t-shirt. Neither of us are wearing it today, but go look at it. Dave is modeling it off down below. You can also get it at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, if you're on iTunes or on Apple Podcasts, make sure to give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating, because, Brandon, I forgot to check at the beginning of the show today, but I still believe if people go on to Apple Podcasts and iTunes, they're just going to think we're a couple of good old boys that just talk about the SEC. And that is just not true, because we are not talking SEC today. We are talking about the Pac-12. So make sure to go give us that 5-star rating and tell people why you like listening to the show each and every week. But, Brandon, let's talk about some Pac-12 South action. How we do it, if you're new here, is we start from the bottom. We work our way up that ladder all the way to the tippy top. And that means we are starting today's preview, this podcast, with the Colorado Buffalo. 5-7 last year, but only 2-7 in the Pac-12 last year. This is a team that has been at the bottom, or at least near the bottom, in scoring ever since they joined the Pac-12 in 2011. I'm going to ask you, what does Colorado need to do, not only to turn that around, but to make sure they're not a team like last year where they're at the bottom of the Pac-12 South?
Well, Ricky, really what Colorado's trying to do, and what they're going to be trying to do now, is show that they weren't just a one-hit wonder back in 2016 when they won the Pac-12 South. Mm-hmm. So what they'd like to be able to do, and it kind of hurt last year because they do go 5-7. They only win 2 games in the conference, and it was really hard to be able to make the case that, no, we're better than this. Our 2016 season was not just a fluke, but they need to find consistency. And they're really trying to do it. They're really trying to get better offensively. That's going to be one of the things. Steven Montez, they're trying to make sure that he's set up with as many weapons as possible. They lost some of their best wide receivers, but yet they believe that they're going to be even better at the position this upcoming season. They have a former guy who worked with Eli Manning and is now working with the quarterbacks here at Colorado. They're trying to set themselves up to be successful and to be able to score points. And you look again, like kind of you mentioned right here at the top of this preview, if you look and see how many points this team scored last season, it is low. And if you look and see how many points this team scored in their conference, only 222 points. That is just above Oregon State. And Oregon State was 0-9. They scored 172 points in the conference on the other side. This is just a team that really wants to find consistency and hit a stride.
Well, and really that's not a reason, because like I look at, all right, Steven Montez, where basically you talk about that 2016 season, that was a season where Colorado was so close to not only, like you said, they won their side of the Pac-12, they almost won the entire conference that year. It was in the first half against Washington. I remember watching that game like I was watching it yesterday. They're playing that game really close. It's 14-7 at the end of the first half. You have their quarterback at the time, Leafu, get injured. He comes out. What does Montez do? And of course, this is 2 years ago, so a 2 years younger Steven Montez. What does he do on the first play of the second half? Throws it, I believe it was to the left side. The left sideline, picked up by Washington, in for the score. And ever since then, it was all Washington in that second half, where the Buffaloes only scored 3 points in that second half. So, I mean, scoring's definitely an issue, but like when you look at Montez last year, he didn't really have a ton of bad games. And when I say bad games, touchdown to interception ratio against Colorado State, against Washington, and really that's it. That's the only 2 games where he had more interceptions than he had touchdowns. The games where he had interceptions in, out of those, I mean, Northern Colorado had 3 more touchdowns than INTs. The rest of them were even. So USC, he matched them 2 for 2. Arizona State, he matched it 1 for 1. To me, the reason why we're focusing on the scoring so much is because of how many points, especially last year, they gave up. This is a team that when you look at it, like this is a team, 23 points, not great, not bad. 36 points, pretty good. 28 against Cal, 28 for some teams is a good game, and you can win that game. But when you're giving up 34, 38, 41, you're giving up 28 points to Washington State, 33 to Oregon State, 45 to Arizona. That's where the problem lies, where obviously the John Madden moment here, you have to outscore your opponent if you're going to win the football game. Boom. Thanks, John Madden. That's why we're focusing on, to me, the scoring, is because this team, especially last year against the Pac-12, they're going to give up points to Pac-12 teams.
Yeah, they certainly did last season. I mean, they were 109th against the run, 208 yards per game just on the ground. Just on the ground. They were 102nd in sacks. They weren't even averaging 2 sacks a game, so they were not getting to the quarterback. They were not putting any pressure on the quarterback. They weren't getting the backfield. There was no disruption. No disruption, and they only had 14 takeaways on the season. That's it. That's total takeaways. That defense has got to find a way to be more creative and be able to find ways to create turnovers, because if they can do that and get the ball into the hands of the offense more often, then maybe that offense can find a rhythm and be able to develop that rhythm, get into that, and feel a little bit more comfortable on that side.
Let me ask you about this then. This is a team that on defense only returned 6 starters. And I know compared to like a team like Michigan State that we talked about last week, that's not a lot of starters that they are returning. I believe that's like just around half the unit that they are returning. However, this is a team that went into the junior college recruiting trail to try to get some guys. They got like D lineman Mustafa Johnson. They've got a defensive back in Davion Taylor. They've got Alex Tachungum, who is going to be an outside linebacker. They got Delrick Abrams, who's going to be a cornerback. Aaron Maddox, who's going to be a safety. My question for you, these are all guys that are going to play significant parts or even start for this Colorado team in just their first year in Colorado, making that jump from junior college to FBS. How big of a role are they going to be, and is that going to save? I'm going to say, is that going to save Colorado this year to where, all right, we won't give up as many points because we're bringing in more experienced players from junior college. rather than diving into high school seniors.
Well, Mike McIntyre, he's obviously going to JUCO because he needs the help right now.
Yeah.
He can't afford to wait, and he realizes that. So I think that
it's not like this is his first year on the job, and it's like, well, you got 3 years to turn it around.
But it's also one of those where he doesn't. Even if he does, I mean, even if he did, he doesn't want to wait that long.
No.
He sees where he needs to improve. He sees that, hey, we don't have time to sit and wait and creep a little bit better each and every year. 2016 is where they want to be able to get back to.
Yep.
They had the taste, it felt great, and they don't even feel like they were able to do everything they wanted to do in 2016. Then they definitely took a step back last year. A big part of it was because this defense could not keep them in the game. This defense was constantly breaking. Anyone who had a decent to good running back was running all over them. And they couldn't get the takeaways. They couldn't get the stops. There was no pressure. He needs guys to be able to come in and kind of be diamond in the rough steals for him right now. And will he get that out of everybody? No, but I think that he's hoping that he'll get one, maybe two, who can be anchors for this defense and provide some depth.
And I mean, the thing that confuses me is you look at this team from 2016 to 2017, because to me, you look at McIntyre's resume and it's like, you take 2016 out of it, you're looking at that resume at Colorado going, that's not that good. You even look at his resume at San Jose State, was almost the same thing. A 1-12 season his first year, a 5-7 season, then a 10-2. We don't know if they would have digressed like Colorado did, because he got hired by Colorado right after that 2012 season. But I mean, taking out that 2016 year, 4-8, 2-10, 4-9, and then 5-7 last year, and maybe it was all the defense. Maybe that's what people are going to tell us in the comment section. The defense just needs to get better, because on offense, I look at it and it's like, all right, Shea Fields was still there. Yeah, he had a little bit less yards, I believe, than he did in 2016. Philip Lindsay was still their running back, and I believe had more yards in 2017 than he did in 2016. Yeah, he ran for 200 more yards, however, 2 less touchdowns in 2017. The only big difference to me was that you lost your starting quarterback, and Steven Montez was the guy to take over, but even you look at that, and he had more yards than Liafu, and also had more touchdowns. Had about 7 more touchdowns than Safo did. So to me, like, is this just the defense? Like, is it just the defense and the offense is, I don't want to say fine, but like, I look at the players on this offense and go, what's the like almost a Jerry Seinfeld thing? Like, what's the deal with this Colorado offense? That's what I'm thinking when looking at the players still on the roster between 16 and 17.
So, Ricky, this is why I think anybody who looks, certainly from the outsider perspective, would look at this and say, okay, maybe 2016 was a fluke, because you're looking at this past year was the end of a really good run of 3 really good receivers there.
And Philip Lindsay is gone, too.
And Philip Lindsay is gone, you know, the guy who was toting the rock for them and doing an outstanding job. Before 2016, and they were still there, these players, these good players that we're talking about that left.
Yeah. In
2014, 2-10. In 15, 4-9. 6-19 in those 2 seasons. Then you go 10-4, and now at 5-7, you've had your second best season record-wise at Colorado under McIntyre. So that has to make someone wonder, okay, you've had some pieces there. What are you not doing right as the head coach? And I know that that's maybe a criticism I shouldn't be making, but it's a question that I think anyone who's looking at it from where we're at, anyone who's looking at it from the media, has got to be questioning, okay, you've had talent.
Yeah.
You've had talent. You've had pieces in place. How much longer do you need? And why aren't you able to consistently be 9-4, 8-5, 10-4, something like that, being able to go to a bowl game, winning a bowl game? Why can't you be consistent like that? What's the issue? Is it the players? Is it the coaching? Is it the staff? What is it? So I'm very interested to see, can Colorado have that bounce back? He stocks up on JUCO players defensively. You still have you have a transfer running back. You have still at least 2 good wide receivers. Montez is still there. So you have some consistency on the offensive side, at least with your quarterback position, and that's probably the biggest one. What is Montez going to be able to do for you? Is he going to be able to be more consistent this season, a little less up and down than he was in 2017? And what does the defense bring you? Mm-hmm. It's going to be very interesting to see how they're able to put it all together and if they're able to get back to that 9-4 regular season.
I look at this and I'm going to say, and I know this might not help for 2018, but it goes back to what we're saying is 2016 the real Colorado Buffaloes, or was this past season 2017 I'm going to call it the Danny Green Colorado Buffaloes, they are who we thought they were Colorado Buffaloes. And the reason why I say that is, let's go back in the time machine for a second and go back to 2016. The team that finished second in the Pac-12 South that year, USC. Do you remember who the starting quarterback was for USC? We talked about him at the beginning of the year. He did not end as the starter.
In 2016?
Yes.
Max Brown.
Max Brown. We did a segment of, can he turn the tide? Can he basically be the starting quarterback?
And can I just say really quickly,
yeah.
I think that's the first time that you've asked me to go back in the time machine, and I've actually got the answer right.
Yeah, before you just say, no, Ricky, I don't remember stuff like that. But yeah,
I'm
right.
extremely proud of myself.
Max Brown, he threw a total of 93 passes that year. Sam Darnold took over after, and that was a USC team that early on lost to Stanford, lost to Utah. Ever since the calendar turned October, did not lose a single game. They beat those Colorado Buffaloes. They ended with 3 losses on the year. The Utah team that finished in 3rd place, that was a team that started out 4-0, 1-0 in the Pac-12, and then only won 2 games from there and their bowl game. So 3 games the rest of the year. Lost 4 straight between Stanford, USC, Arizona State. They, too, beat those Colorado Buffaloes, but it did not matter because they did not need a tiebreaker. The point I am getting to, and I'm just going to use Arizona State as the last example, not going to go to UCLA and Arizona, who finished the bottom 2, but Arizona State started out 4-0, lost to USC, beat UCLA, started out 5-1, then lost every single game after that to go to 5-7 on the year. So to me, I wonder, and this is where I'm going to relate it to 2018, I feel like this season for Colorado is going to be closer to what we saw last year, because when I look at 2016 for the Buffaloes, it kind of looks at me like, yeah, you finished 12-4. I don't want to take anything away from you, but did you only finish at the top of your division because of what happened with like USC and Utah? Mainly USC. If USC had a starting quarterback like they did last year from day one, I don't think Colorado ever wins the Pac-12 South in 2016.
Bold statement to make, but one that I don't think that there'd be a ton of people who would be disagreeing with you. I think that, too, when you look over at the schedule for Colorado, which is what I'm doing right now.
That's what I was going to do, too.
There's not a lot of games that I see them winning. Mm-hmm. You know, I see them winning 2 out of their first 3.
Shocker, the losses in Lincoln?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they win 2 out of their first 3. Okay, so they're 2-1. UCLA, they're revitalized now.
Yeah.
They are revitalized. They've got the chip effect. Okay. And not that that'll do anything, but
we'll talk about them in a second.
I think that I look at this schedule, I see 3 wins for sure, with Oregon State being the 3rd, and I could see them beating an Arizona or beating an ASU for 5 wins on the year. I mean, I see them right about where they're at right now with their cap, for me, being 6 wins.
Well, and the thing that is interesting for me is, so if you were to ask me way before the season began how many wins Colorado gets, I don't see many. I could see 3-1 in the first 3, or 2-1 in the first 3, like you said. UCLA is a question mark. ASU is a question mark, because the thing I forgot to say at the very beginning that I was going to say is I'm coining this podcast the podcast of new coaches. This has half of the division, complete turnover, new coaches at the top. Chip Kelly coming in for UCLA, but they lost Josh Rosen, even though Chip Kelly was really trying to get Josh Rosen to stay for one more year, which would have been really good for Chip Kelly. Arizona State has Herm Edwards coming in. We're going to get to that in a second, because that's a little bit different of him coming from the broadcast booth, coming into the world of college coaching. Believe his last coaching job was the New York Jets. Was the last time he was a head coach?
I think it was.
And that was a long time ago.
Kansas City before that,
because
wasn't
I believe the Jets was the last one, though, because he did the infamous "you play to win the game" speech during one of his press conferences. And then also you've got Kevin Sumlin in Arizona. And for me, I don't know if I can give them the Chip Kelly one. I don't know if I can give them Arizona State. Like Arizona State, I kind of want to, but I don't know, because I don't know what this team is going to be with Herm Edwards. I don't know what this Arizona team is going to be with Kevin Sumlin.
8-5, you know that.
8-5, that's what they do. That's what Kevin Sumlin does. But like right now, I see 4 games where I'm like automatic wins. The rest I have to wait and see.
Who's your 4th?
My 4th is Arizona State. Well, my 3 wins then. Yeah, I'm going to say 4. I'm going to say Washington State. And the only reason I'm saying Washington State is because we're going to talk about them next week, but I am interested to see what they do in the quarterback situation without Luke Falk there. Like Luke Falk, accuracy issues aside, he was a good senior leader for them last year. So, yeah, you know what? 3 being the 2 non-conference, Oregon State, that 4th being either Washington State or Cal. Pick your poison of which one you want it to be. The rest are either for sure losses or toss-ups.
Yeah, I could see the floor for them being 3 wins.
Okay.
I could see the floor being 3 wins.
That.
And then, like I said, the ceiling being 6.
Yeah.
The ceiling being 6. But again, I am not, especially this season, I am not a believer in
the Buffs.
And I'm not a believer in them being able to get back to where they were when they were 10-4 back in 2016. I absolutely not. And the reason being is because they have too much to try and improve on defensively. You can't just automatically drop from 109th on defense against the run, allowing 208 yards per game, to 50. I mean, that would be absolutely insane and impressive. And if they do that, then maybe we're looking a little bit more towards that. But to have such a dramatic drop and just dramatically get better, I don't know if we're going to see that. It remains to be seen what McIntyre is going to get out of his JUCO signings.
Yeah, especially on the defensive side.
Especially on the defensive side. But I just don't see them improving that much defensively where they're able to make that leap to the top.
Now, here's the last thing I'll say. There's only one way I think they can turn this season into 2016.
A magic wand?
No.
Oh.
You think about this year in the Pac-12 South, there's a little bit of similarities between 2016 and this year. All the coaching changes we have. Herm Edwards at ASU, Chip Kelly at UCLA, Kevin Sumlin at Arizona. We don't know how great those teams are going to be in year one of those coaches. Might take a year for those guys to get going. Kevin Sumlin being the only one that has, to me, a head start because he's got a guy like Khalil Tate, who we're going to talk about in their preview at the quarterback position, who could be in the Heisman running this year. That's how good Khalil Tate is. So that team might be better. But I mean, look at USC. They could be in a similar situation that they were in 2016. Darnold is gone in the NFL. We don't know for sure who's going to be their quarterback. There are several things going around. They're kind of tossed up with who it could be. If they stumble out of the gate like they did in 2016 when they didn't really know who their quarterback was, when it probably should have been Darnold, even though he was so young in that first game, this could line up to be a good year for Colorado,
they
only because everyone else could be bad.
USC still had a strong finish.
But it was all like it took those first two Pac-12 losses to just push them out of the way.
I don't think the rest of the South is strong enough to just blow by anybody. I don't. There's honestly right now I don't see anyone that's that strong to come out like a Colorado. I just don't think that they would be, or a Utah. I don't think that they're gonna just be running right out of the gate and be able to run away with anything if someone like a USC starts out slow.
But here's what I'm saying. To me, my favorite to win the South is, shocker, I'm going to say it, USC.
Is it? Okay.
But I could see maybe this Colorado team getting the jump on some of these other teams and maybe seeing a season like we saw in 2016. They lose on the road against who? A non-conference team from what conference, Brandon?
Say that again.
So in 2016, their only non-conference loss to was a team from which conference? I'll give you a hint. It's the same one that Nebraska's in.
The Big Conference.
The Big Ten. They played Michigan in Ann Arbor for that third game. They lost. I could see a similar situation. This is pie in the sky, but based off of what we're getting with the South right now, they lose to USC, they lose to Nebraska, they lose to Washington. If they can take care of business in all the other games, and I know it kind of feels like, well, Ricky, duh, if they take care of business. But if they take care of business in all those other games, they might not have the chance to let USC get that tiebreaker, especially if USC starts a quarterback and gets two quick Pac-12 losses like they did in 2016. That's the only way I see Colorado winning this division or getting close, is if other teams in this division kind of stumble this year and fall below them. But any final thoughts before we move on into the next team in our preview?
Yeah.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Let us know what you think about Colorado. Are we on the ball? Are we off the ball? What are you thinking? Wins, losses, and everything for the Buffs in 2018.